Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, and occasionally Torchwood podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS once again, or rather, Torchwood Hub, for the fourth and final week of this year's Torchwood Month. And unfortunately, Jesse Jackson's not able to join us, but thankfully, here with me, so you don't have to listen to just my nonsense, and I'm sure you're all very glad about that. I know my special guest companion co-host is. So everyone, please welcome back to the podcast, Christine Peruski.
Hey, everybody.
Yay.
Hey, Charles.
Welcome
Long
back to
time
Next
no
Up
see.
I know. I was noticing, I was going through my log that I keep of the episodes, and I was like, wow, I haven't talked to Christine since episode 200.
It's Nick's fault. I blame Nick.
Oh, I blame Nick too, just because I want to. But no, I just tease Nick. I tease Nick. I love Nick. But we last talked with you as part of our big super group episode where we talked the Pandorica opens the Big Bang, and since then apparently a certain Mr. DJ Nick has been hoarding you, locking you away, chaining you inside a basement or something. I don't know, but.
Wow, this just got dark.
Yeah, I get it. It did get a little dark.
Possibly kinky. I don't know about this.
Bondage. James Bondage. But thankfully you somehow you got free and you made it back here, and I'm very glad because I miss talking to you. I mean, you kind of give me a crap over Messenger and online and stuff, but I'm used to that. I like that. I enjoy it.
I'll try to do it more often. Sorry.
It's always, I know. It's always nice to talk to you in person. I really appreciate it. All right. So today, here at episode 229, everybody, we are going to be talking The New World. And this was the very first episode of Torchwood Series 4, a.k.a. the Torchwood Miracle Day season that aired on Stars way back in 2011. Stars. Yeah. With the Z because, hey, we're edgy. But this was written by Russell T. Davies, thankfully, this episode, who, of course, created Torchwood, and directed by Bharat Nalluri.
Easy for you to say.
I know, right? Bharat Nalluri. There we go. That's much better. Who directed the 100 pilot that, for the show that was on the CW, and also directed the very obscure Crow sequel, The Crow Salvation, which I have never seen, even though I love the 1994 Crow movie with Brandon Lee.
Gee, which number is that one?
I think it's like 3. I don't know.
Oh, God. No,
I watched
there's no 3. It goes 1, 2, 4. That's it.
Okay. Well, then there you go. So just forget what I just said then about this movie. But yeah, it goes like, I think The Crow, City of Angels, and then Wherever You Want, I guess, after that.
Yeah.
All right.
The one with Angel, actually. David Boreanaz. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He was in that, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
He just basically played Angelus in that movie. That's what I saw.
Well, that was basically his range, pretty much back in the day.
Ouch.
Well,
ouch. Slinging barbs.
Yeah, well, that's what we do here, I mean, I like him. I've enjoyed him on Bones and stuff, but he's not exactly like he's not Laurence Olivier, okay? Let's just face it. So.
Oh, who can be Laurence Olivier?
Well, Laurence Olivier, I guess. So
yeah.
This one, of course, features the return of John Barrowman as Captain Jack Harkness and Eve Myles as Gwen Cooper, or is it Gwen Williams by now? I'm not sure.
No, that's not how that works.
Probably, yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
She
Kind
is
of
like the
and
Amy
Rory.
Pond.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
You're probably right. And we also get the return of Kai Owen as Reese Williams, who during the season pretty much becomes a member of Torchwood, doesn't he? Because there's hardly any
Yeah.
Torchwood left after
He was doing a little of that from
Yenta
in,
was
Children of
killed
Earth.
off. Yeah, he was. He kind of got his feet wet during Children of Earth, and now he's just essentially not letting Gwen out of his sight at this point, I think. And probably for good reason. We get introduced to new characters in this one. We get Mekhi Phifer as Rex Matheson, who's probably best known as Dr. Greg Pratt on ER. And he was also in the movie 8 Mile and the 2004 version of Dawn of the Dead, the Zack Snyder one, that one.
I think I only remember the hilarious musical interlude in the middle of that one.
And how did that go, Christine?
Oh, I can't even remember.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put
I
you on the
remember it was
spot.
like Richard Cheese version of some song.
You just kind of sounded like you knew it, so I was going to go to you, but that's okay.
It was a great cover of like a lounge singer version of what was a serious song, and it just made the whole like this whole montage in the middle of the movie hilarious.
Yeah,
we were all giggling in the theater.
Montage, gotta have a montage. All right, now I want to watch Team America World Police, where that song's from. We get the introduction of Alexa Havens as Esther Drummond, possibly one of the worst character names Russell T. Davies has ever come up with.
Yeah, Esther's never a good name.
No, not especially not for like a young, vivacious blonde, right? She was on the Constantine TV series with Matt Ryan, which I was a huge fan of back in the day, so much so I did a podcast with Karen Lindsay about it, Dangerous Habits, that essentially evolved into the Fandom Zone podcast they do right now with DJ Nick. And she was also on Grey's Anatomy and pretty much known for being on All My Children for several seasons.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either because I never watch All My Children. Bill Pullman is probably one of the more notable names in this cast. But unfortunately, he plays the creepy child molester, Oswald Danes.
Man, this guy has range. He used
Yes,
to be
he
president.
does.
I think he's been president a few times.
Pretty much, yeah. So I know him, and Zan Sprouse knows him from playing the character Fred Madison in the David Lynch film Lost Highway, which we talked about on Ghostwood not too long ago. He's really good in that one. He's also Lone Star in the Mel Brooks film Spaceballs.
Oh my God, I had forgotten. Oh, did I tell you that?
That's where he kind of made his big debut. That was his career.
I had Spaceballs memorized before I even knew what Star Wars was. How sad is that? Oh yeah.
You're one of those people. Well, I mean that makes sense, given your age and whatnot. So you dialed into Spaceballs first before Star Wars. That's cool.
Weird. I know, it's weird.
That had to be interesting going back and going like, oh, so that's where that's from.
Right. Pretty much. And all the weird clips from Muppet Babies, the cartoon. They use a lot of Star Wars clips in that.
Yes, they do. And, of course, President Whitmore in Independence Day, which I'm sure that's where you primarily know him from, right, Christine?
I'm sure that's what everybody knows him from.
Pretty much.
Well,
yeah.
I obviously knew him from Spaceballs because I had it memorized.
It's Lone Star. I just like saying Lone Star.
Pizza the Hut.
Yeah, exactly. And then if Zan was here, we'd be doing Spaceballs quotes ad infinitum. So that's probably for the best, right? That we don't do that. We'll say that because we definitely probably want to talk Spaceballs on Drunk Cinema. So stay tuned. That's on our list. Let's just put it that way. Tom Price returns as now former PC Andy Davidson, now Sergeant Andy Davidson. He got promoted, y'all.
He better be.
Arlene Tur makes her debut as Dr. Vera Juarez, although she's not really in much of this episode, but we will talk about her a little bit. She was in the movie Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts, which I never saw, and also on Grey's Anatomy. So if you're a Grey's Anatomy fan, you probably recognize some people in this story.
God, everybody in this show is from my mom's TV shows.
Yeah. Apparently, Russell T. Davies probably watches Grey's Anatomy, I'm guessing. Sharon Morgan plays Mary Cooper. We just talked about her last week when Holly, Mac, and I talked Something Borrowed. She's, Gwen's mom. And then we also get the return of William Thomas as Geraint, Geraint Cooper, Gwen's father.
Just call him Jerry.
Maybe Geraint, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe it's French. But yeah, let's call him Jerry. Jerry Cooper. There you go. That works better. And he was also in Something Borrowed. Before we get to trivia, though, I do want to ask you what your general reactions were to this one. Because I'm guessing, this wasn't the first time you saw it.
No.
So I'm curious of, what was your initial reaction when Torchwood aired this one?
Well, this first episode.
Did you watch it on Starz when it returned, or was it Blu-ray or DVD or something?
I believe I watched it through alternative means, but when it came out, I watched it when it came out.
I did that with the first 2 seasons of the new Doctor Who, so I'm right there with you. Yeah.
But I got the first episode is good. It's pretty tight. The whole thing feels like Miracle Day feels like Torchwood. It actually has the same tone, I think, of Children of Earth. Maybe a little less creepy at first. It takes a while to set in, to really understand what's happening. But I did get this low-level sense of the Americanization of this, which I understood because Starz is American. It was a joint production with the BBC, but mostly Starz was funding this, and of course we get all of these American characters. Most of what's happening is happening in America, and it was nice to see all of the characters that we got brought into this. Obviously, Jack and Gwen. It was good to still see Reese. Even Andy. It was a nice touch to have Andy. And while I didn't recall it at the time, even Gwen's parents were both in there. All of these actors that had been in the show before were used again, and I loved it. And our main characters, they all felt exactly the same. But the tone, as of course it would be, got changed because Torchwood is long gone. Absolutely long gone. And
pretty much blown off the map.
Yeah,
for the most part.
yeah, literally. But this first episode didn't have any real problems. It's as the season went on that you could feel all of the Americanization. The fact that this should have been another Children of Earth, 5 episodes, tight storytelling, one long story to tell. But of course, a season of TV back then in America was 22 episodes standard. It was rare to see something shorter than that. So, of course, they took what should have been 5 episodes and stretched it out into 10 episodes, and you started to drag. You could feel it starting to drag. And there was
there was a lot of repetition.
Yeah, a lot of
and padding the story
stuff.
out.
And I will get into that as we go on, because there are things about some of these characters that don't show up, that aren't overly apparent in this first episode. But as you watch through the season, you start to realize this is excessiveness. This is American excessiveness. And the whole season, a lot of people hate it. And it's really about the pacing. And I feel like this is a great story to tell. It's a really good story to tell. And they just took way too long to tell it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you make a great point that the 5 episodes, had this been just 5 instead of 10, it probably would have been a lot better. You cut out all the filler. They halfway through the season, they end up at this camp. And that's when things just really bog down. And then, there's a lot going on with this story. It's complex, and I didn't have a problem with that with Russell T Davies doing Children of Earth, but here they've got so many writers involved, and because of that, they brought in some American writers, so it definitely does have that more American feel. So consequently, for me, it doesn't really feel like technically, yes, it is an official Torchwood season, but it doesn't really feel that way to me in a lot of ways. Some of it it does, but some of it doesn't. It's kind of like the Diet Coke of Torchwood. 1 calorie Torchwood, not Torchwood enough. But
I don't know. I felt like instead of having a nice, delicious meal, we decided to open up the all-you-can-eat bar, and we overstayed our welcome.
Yeah.
And we put in all sorts of foods that just weren't worth it.
And the episode count, because of it pads out this season, but it is shorter than the first 2 seasons of Torchwood.
But see,
those were
were
13
telling
episodes.
one story. Those were telling
Exactly.
10 stories. You get a couple of 2-parters, but they were all individual stories.
You beat me to my point.
You're welcome.
Yes, you're like, get on with it. So then,
Don't be an American.
I know, right? Yeah, that's unfortunately that's the way I do. I get a little long-winded sometimes. I realize that, but yeah, it just feels like that structure. When you're doing the original episodes, it wasn't. You weren't telling those like single episode, 2-episode stories. You're telling, this big long story, and consequently, there wasn't really sufficient plotting, I think, to really pull it off. There had to be more going on as far as more developments instead of just circling around the same location and not really driving the story forward. And probably the inconsistency of having various writers involved as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 writers telling the entire story might have contributed to that a little bit. So that's probably why certain episodes are paced better than others, because probably you have some writers that know how to pace episodes better than others, consequently. All right, so trivia. Early development rumors regarding this project, they suggested that this 4th season of Torchwood was going to be a reboot of the show because they originally tried to pitch this to Fox. Just kind of like how the BBC originally pitched Doctor Who back in the 90s with Paul McGann. But that deal apparently fell through, so they ended up doing a different deal with Starz, who obviously officially announced the project, and then because of Starz getting involved, it's a different set of executives, and maybe some of these executives probably, and this probably factored into the actual production, probably didn't really get Torchwood because it's American executives versus British executives. So it had a different feel.
Watch the show, maybe.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. They could have been fans, but it certainly didn't seem that way.
I mean, they didn't even have to watch the whole show; just watch the last season.
Yeah, I know, right? 5 episodes. How hard was that? And then take it from there. But oh well, it's done now. Esther Drummond was originally called Esther Katusi, Katusi.
You were saying Drummond was bad?
Right, exactly. Well, here's the thing. Esther was originally supposed to have been played by a non-white actress. So presumably like an Asian actress, right? By that name. So essentially they whitewashed that character, but they kind of evened it out because Rex was originally supposed to have been played by a white actor, and they cast Mekhi Phifer. So essentially what they did is flip it, I think.
Okay.
So nothing was really lost. But
I would have liked both roles. I mean, we already got the whitewashing on the British side, the old crew, all white. So bring in 2 colored actors. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. But I guess, at least we got Rex.
Well, studio execs got a studio exec. So, it was a whole, 10 years ago now, believe it or not.
I can still complain.
Yeah, you can still complain. It's valid. The New World was only the 3rd Doctor Who Universe episode in terms of date of release to feature the first unit principal photography in the United States. Following, the most recent attempt was Day of the Moon from Matt Smith's 2nd season, Series 6. It was also the first episode in the history of the Doctor Who universe to feature any work done in California. So, got to see a different location we haven't seen in Doctor Who shows. Woohoo, right? Still waiting for Doctor Who to go to California. That could be interesting. If they do it right.
I'd love Doctor Who to come to where I live.
Yeah,
There's absolutely no reason for it, but
Exactly. But but we're in Ohio, so yeah, I get the same thing. So that's all I have for trivia, unless you had anything you want to share.
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Well, let's dive into our topics then, because we had a lot to talk about here. So we're going to do 4 topics today. Yep, deep dive. Right. Topic number 1, let's talk Gwen, Reese, and Andy. Through an Andy because, he serves as Gwen's liaison, since Gwen and Reese appear to have gone into, since the events of Children of Earth, witness protection.
Yeah. Or just in general hiding.
Yeah, they're essentially hiding out in this cottage in Wales. And while I was doing my research, I found out that apparently, if you'd like, that cottage is owned by, I guess, the UK National Trust or something, and you can rent that if you want. If you want to hang out in Gwen and Reese's house.
If you want to hang out, make a TV show, whatever.
There you go. If you want to make your season 5 of Torchwood, go right ahead. But
you'll probably need special paperwork for filming or something.
Yeah,
it's probably extra.
I thought it was interesting. So let's talk Gwen and Reese, who are struggling to live a normal life post Children of Earth as much as they can, raising their daughter Unwin. So hey, we finally get a baby name, y'all.
And that it sounds very, like a Lord of the Rings elf, very Tolkien elf.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, you don't look like Liv Tyler. I'm just saying.
Nobody looks like Tyler.
Let's talk Andy too. So what are your thoughts on Gwen and Reese? And they're trying to live a normal life, and their return end up getting pulled back into Torchwood.
You try to get away, but they just keep pulling you back in.
Exactly, right?
Gwen
so what do you think?
Desperately needs some PTSD therapy. She's having bad dreams.
Agreed.
Frequently. She can't handle any air traffic in the area, people coming to the door. Of course, to be fair, both of those were suspicious. Reese is all like, get off my land. And I'm like, get off my grass. Get off my lawn, you kids.
Yeah, that's basically where I thought Reese was going to come out and say, get off my lawn.
They clearly have regular drills about what to do when someone comes to the door. Because all she had to do was point, and they just had a routine down. I'm like, man.
Yeah. He's tossing her guns, he's reaching in the closet and taking care of the baby.
We have tornado drills at home.
Yeah.
Well, actually not at home, but at school, you have tornado drills. They have someone's at the door drills. It's crazy. And that many guns in the UK is scary. I don't know how they got them.
Slightly paranoid.
Yeah. And of course, Gwen needs therapy, but obviously can't get any because I think they're hiding from everybody. If they had even so much as one person show up at their door,
right?
Or because they would have to have something official on the books. Her regularly going to a doctor, even a therapist, they'd know where to find her. It looks like they've been looking for her for a while.
Yeah,
and it makes me wonder why. I thought at the end of Children of Earth, they kind of made a deal, but it looks like they were still maybe trying to wipe her out or something. And
maybe Russell T. Davies thought this would be more interesting to essentially have them hiding out, almost like fugitives.
It looks like Reese kind of agreed to living in the middle of nowhere as long as they could at least pretend to have a normal life.
Right.
And he's a little strict on that one because she's telling, what is it? She's one? Maybe 1 year old.
And when, I'd say that's about right.
Yeah, she's telling her a story from when she was in Torchwood, and I don't even think I remember this as an episode. I think this was not an episode. And
I don't remember it either. I was kind of wondering. I was going to ask you if you knew about it, but
no. Maybe it's a big finish.
Big finish on. Yeah, maybe
words.
I'm right there with you. Go ahead.
It just sounds like a made-up story with, fantastical creatures, and Reese is like, shut it down. I'm like,
right.
Why? Yeah, she goes, she thinks it's a fairy tale. I'm like, it sounds like a fairy tale. I thought it was a fairy tale.
Yeah, and he gets really upset. He's like, you're just filling their head with all that nonsense, and
Please, at that age, you could read the stock report. Just do it in fun tones, and they'll be really interested.
Right, exactly. She's like, Gwen to Gwen's credit, her defense on this is, well, she's only one. She's not even going to be, understand what I'm even saying here at this point. And the Reese is just like, no, you're gonna fill her head with all those Torchwood ideas.
You could watch horror movies with that baby, and they're just not going to be affected.
Right.
Be like, moving pictures.
Yeah, my mom used to do that with me when I was growing up, and well, okay, maybe that's a bad example, but
I'm sure the problem started long after that.
Yeah, well, maybe before. Who knows? But, hard to say with me. All right. So,
Andy didn't say anything about Andy.
Yeah, what about Andy? What do you make of Andy?
I thought it was nice to have him in there to add that little touch of continuity with the previous seasons to make it feel more like it was still Torchwood.
Yeah.
And he was definitely their connection to the real world.
Yes.
I mean, they're so disconnected. Apparently, they don't even turn on the TV back at home because it's not until they show up to check on her father that they even get an inkling of what's going on. It's just like,
yeah, they have no idea about what's going on with Miracle Day at all.
He's like, you're kidding, right? You haven't heard? I'm like, yeah, turn on the TV. You can't get away from it.
Check in once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they can get satellite at the very least there.
Right? Oh, absolutely. They probably have it. Let me go back to the wide shot just before they blow up the house.
But I like Andy. He, like you said, he's a good connection to Gwen. We find out that essentially he's like her liaison at this point, and thankfully he got promoted. So I like that. The fact that, hey, obviously time has passed, and this guy's not just still stuck handing out parking tickets, presumably, at this point. One would hope, exactly, right? But Andy's the one that actually tells Gwen and Reese the reason he reaches out to them is like, well, your father's in the hospital. And, he's had a heart attack. And it turns out he didn't have just one heart attack. He had 2 heart attacks.
Yeah.
And so they, Gwen's mother's there. And they essentially are risking
exposure.
Potential exposure. Yeah, just thank you. So they're risking exposure to even just to go see him. And, for as far as Gwen's mother is concerned, she's happy because, hey, she finally gets to see the baby, which she hasn't apparently seen since Children of Earth.
She was born.
Yeah. So she's happy on that front, even though Gwen's mother is apparently all about, like, already implanting the ideas that Gwen's baby is fat. Yeah, exactly. Right. What are you feeding her? Lard?
Yeah, that's what I look like at that age.
Yeah, she's a baby. So already trying to give her a complex.
Let's dig out Gwen's pictures from that age. See how fat she was.
Yeah, but apparently Gwen now has, she's got some skin in the game here because her father essentially would have died probably from that second heart attack had it not been for Miracle Day. And it's one of the reasons I think that she ends up getting back involved with Torchwood.
Also just generally seeing it for herself, being in that hospital after they're already starting to overflow. They got people in the hallways with monitors out there. It's like right now. It's bad.
It is.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Something like that, it starts to build up pretty fast. I mean, you just don't realize the rate at which people die on a daily basis and how much we need that sort of turnaround, that turnover of people.
Right.
Like they get into, luckily it was only humans, not every living being on the planet, because if it were mosquitoes or insects, we'd be overrun in 2 days. And God knows nobody wants that.
No.
Especially all those things that eat insects. Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's one of their clues that they figure that, it's obviously targeting humans because, it's not affecting the insects whatsoever. They're still dying.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, like you said. All right, and we'll talk more about Miracle Day, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously very upsetting, and it's what helps to draw her back into, with Torchwood. Obviously Rex shows up at their place, and things kind of take a little interesting turn where the helicopter shows up, and just as they're trying to deal with Rex, and then who's a major pain, and then they try to they're trying to pack up and get out of there, and then the helicopter shows up, and then so Gwen essentially is having to fend off this helicopter. So what did you make of that scene? Because I thought it was pretty funny, that she takes time, and I appreciated her mothering skills here, that her parenting skills, that she took time to put earmuffs on her baby right before she opens fire to protect her eardrums from the gunfire. So it's very considerate.
Not just the earmuffs, because it was over top of a blanket as well. So we got, double layer protection there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the kid would still hear stuff, and blanks actually make noises, so that it was an actual child in her arms when she was firing those blanks in real life. So there had to have been some decent ear protection going on. Of course, they probably put actual earplugs in the baby for that shot.
One would think, right?
Yeah.
Or they added the sound effects in later in post-production, presumably.
I suppose, there are different, you can get different volumes on blanks. I remember that I had a class. I actually had acting with guns.
That's cool.
Yes, I got to fire 3 blanks, and the last one was like a double load, so that it would be twice as loud. So
do you have recoil with that, with the blanks, as much as a regular bullet? No,
actually, that was part of the training, that blanks don't have a recoil because you're not actually firing anything out. It's just, a little explosion in the hand. So you have to pretend. You have to, pull your hands back a bit when you're firing.
To make it look like there's recoil.
Yeah, they even went into the fact that some guns have, like a protection against recoil, so they wouldn't recoil. And you have to not pretend to have a recoil with the ones that wouldn't. It was a fun class.
So you got to compensate both ways. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Anyway, off topic.
No, that's awesome. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
So it's our pocket. It's Next Stop Everywhere. We go off topic on a regular basis, so it's fun. It's cool. Our audience is used to it. It's cool.
Yeah, it was so very Gwen to see her shooting a gun with a baby in her arms. It just fit. I felt perfect. And
it's very Linda Hamilton, I thought.
Yes, definitely.
She's got a baby in one arm, she's got a gun in the other, and ready to kick ass.
Absolutely. So. Except I don't think we ever actually saw that in Terminator.
No, but
she would.
We never really got to see John Connor as a baby. So.
No, acting with babies is just no fun.
Maybe stunt babies, I guess. I don't know.
I thought it was a very explosive climax for the episode. That
yes.
He had shooting missiles and bazookas. And...
Yeah. She pulls out the classic, service to air, missile, the bazooka, the rocket launcher, and of course you have, I think it was Rex going like, "Who are you?" And
which
she answers, of course, Torchwood. Yeah, all defiantly.
It really felt like the credits should have rolled right there.
That would have been a great place to cut it, right? But no, that wasn't the case. All right. Anything else about Gwen, Reese, or Andy?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
All right.
Next witness.
Okay. Next, for the prosecution, topic number 2, Captain Jack Bollocks. I'm sorry, Captain Jack Harkness. Right.
Thank you, Reese.
It's one of my favorite Reese lines in this. So, obviously, Reese still does not think very highly of Jack. After all these
has
years.
A problem with him. I mean, did you see the look on Gwen's face when he showed up? They were just in seventh heaven. They had this bond going. They looked at each other after the helicopter blew up, and they're like, yeah. I'm sure Reese hates that.
Yeah.
Hates that.
Well, especially, knowing how he feels that he doesn't want Gwen back in with Torchwood, and he feels obviously, well, Jack's back, so he's just going to get her. Torchwood's back, and so like, here we go, here it all goes again. But Captain Jack apparently, as we find out in this episode, essentially left himself like some kind of Google alert, cosmic Google alert, to that would notify him whenever Gwen. He needed to get back to Earth and protect Gwen because, she's the last one that's still alive.
I got the impression that he was already back on Earth at this point when the show starts, and I really feel like she should have confronted him about that. When did you get back here? How long have you been here? Why didn't you come and say hi?
Why didn't you call? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You never call. You never write. No.
Oddly, we don't get a lot of Jack in this episode. He's like that mysterious shadow in the room at the beginning. Yeah. And
he's trying to be all enigmatic and pop in various scenes, and then he disappears back into the shadows. Yeah.
He's got to really hurt not being the center of attention.
I know. He's got all these people around. So Jack in this very interesting twist. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Jack in this very interesting twist that everybody else during Miracle Day isn't dying, but here he is, Mr. Immortal, suddenly able to be wounded, scratched, bruised, injured, now apparently human, and the only one, presumably, that could die at this point.
Yeah. So first off, he comes off as such a baby, pointing out these little cuts. But it is an important detail, because apparently he used to heal fast. Now, I don't remember this actually coming up in previous seasons. I assumed that he hurt and healed just like anyone else, unless he was killed. But this is clearly, it was a gray area that they were able to play with once they got to this storyline. They never really discussed, well, Jack obviously can't be killed. He'll regenerate. He'll come back. Well, regenerate. he'll heal and come back. But what if he gets paper cut? Does he suffer for like the next 3 days like the rest of us? Does he only start to heal fast when he's completely dead, or is that an always on thing? They never really talked about it before, but now because they never said anything, they can say that he did used to heal really fast from everything.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they did that.
Well, I think some of that probably comes from like when Susie Costello shot him in the first episode. You saw that bullet wound close in his forehead.
Yes, but he definitely had died from that.
Right, he died, but he was standing up again after that. Mm-hmm. And then you saw the bullet wound close. So essentially, it was kind of like a Wolverine healing factor kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I just assumed that it wasn't quite done healing all the way, Yeah, the brain came back, just healing from the inside out.
Yeah, then it pops the bullet out. Boink.
Bling.
Yeah. But so Jack is dealing with this. We wait through about half of this episode before Jack finally turns up. Mm-hmm. When Esther is going through, looking for going through these old files for any kind of information on Torchwood she can gather.
Right. And
this is where she comes across him just as someone's trying to kill her, presumably. Or she thinks is trying to kill her.
Yeah. I think he did determine before it was over that they were after him. And that's like the instant confusion right there, because it's already well established by that point, probably been going on for a couple of days, that no one can die. And here's this guy bound and determined to kill him, which means one thing, at least. He knows he's vulnerable. He has to assume he's vulnerable, or what's the point? And secondly, can you imagine knowing that people aren't dying and willingly suicide bombing? Like strapping yourself with all sorts of explosives. And here's the thing, like we find out later on that apparently,
well, I think he probably figured, well, I'm going to get incinerated.
yeah, he assumed it would do the job of completely incinerating him. Whew, joke's on him.
Apparently not. Yeah, so you might want to rethink cremation.
So
just saying. But yeah, but yeah, there was a very brutal scene when essentially this bomber is all splayed out, just all stretched out on this big long table, and he's barely connected to his head by maybe like a few
ligaments,
nerves and whatnot. Yeah, just or just some minimal connecting tissue.
Gross.
And but the rest of him is just spread out. And
and this is where we get another little nod to the previous seasons. He calls himself Agent Owen Harper of the FBI.
Right. Yes.
It's like
a nice little nod to Owen. Yeah, you appreciated that, right? When he infiltrates that I don't want to say
hospital. It was the hospital.
Well, I was just trying to figure out it was more like a presentation or a discussion. I don't know, but yeah, it's inside the hospital where Rex is being tended to, but somewhere else in the hospital.
And you have to imagine things are just so chaotic at that point. He doesn't even have to try. He just walks up, flashes a badge, says FBI, and joins the crowd walking.
Yeah.
They don't even question it.
No, because he kind of looks the part, doesn't he?
Oh, he does.
He's a very tall, handsome-looking guy. And hopefully that's not for me, because I'm doing my thing. So, but yeah, he's doing his thing. And he looks the part. He knows how to carry it off, and obviously gains their confidence enough to infiltrate the meeting, or for lack of a better term. And he's the one who actually suggests, "Well, hey, what happens if you take the guy's head off?"
He's not a vampire. Fairly certain he's not a vampire.
But it's a fair point. Well, we don't know, so let's find out. What if you disconnect him from his spinal column?
Gross.
And that's exactly what they do.
I'm not even sure he
snip,
was attached to the spinal column. I feel it was just like some of those thick neck muscles that were just strings.
Yeah, I don't know, but presumably. So that's what. But yeah, so they disconnect the head, they sever it, and they it looks like, okay, maybe he's dead, and then all of a sudden the eyes pop open, because of course they do. Yeah. And you realize that now this guy is just a severed head, and that's it.
Definitely bringing a gross factor here.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, apparently he can't talk because his vocal
he doesn't
cords
have vocal cords. Probably.
I was going to say, yeah. So that doesn't work. But so that probably pretty much sucks, right? You're just a head, and you can't even talk and communicate with anybody.
Who thought this was a good idea? Just this whole situation.
Well, the guy had it coming because he was going to blow something up, so he kind of deserved it, right?
I mean, Miracle Day. Who thought this was a good idea?
Apparently Russell T. Davies. But see how that turned out, obviously. So Jack shows up again later, obviously, where just in time when Gwen and Reese and Rex are being pursued, and shows up to kind of help save the day a little bit. And so they kind of they reunite at that point. And Reese obviously gets really testy with Gwen because she realizes, well, hey, she's getting pulled back into this Torchwood thing, and now Jack's back, and so it's going to become a whole thing at this point, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think there was they tried a little bit more to add a little bit of the old Torchwood in there, because they were at the location, Millennium Tower, or what was it?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
it's called Roald Dahl Plaza.
Right.
But essentially, it's like the Millennium Tower thing. Yeah.
Yeah, she's there. They're there, and she says, they rebuilt the tower, and now we're rebuilding Torchwood. I'm like, okay, that was a bit of a stretch. I don't even see why you guys had to be at that location. You just tried. It was just not.
It's probably just a nod to the fans.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
hey, remember our old headquarters before we blew it up?
Yeah.
And they probably figured, well, is there anything maybe we can salvage and use, perhaps?
Oh, God, no. The
Yeah,
explosion came from inside Jack.
I know. Yeah, and at this point, you would think it would have been completely scavenged, right, if there was anything
Absolutely.
after all this time. So Gwen's like, well, I still have those contact lenses.
Yes,
That's pretty much
the
it.
I-5. That was nice that there was a quick casual mention.
Yeah.
It's not going to even come into play for a few episodes, but there it is.
Yeah. But it does, yeah, well, they had to establish it, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so you didn't go like, well, where did she get these contact lenses from? That's what. So, for anybody new, presumably watching the show. All right, anything else about Captain Jack Bollocks you want to talk about?
Well, I like that he was on the same plane as Rex and took his phone away.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was a nice little reveal because, we all we see is the phone being taken away, and then we find out later, and Rex finds out later with us, that was you? You're the one who took my phone away?
It's you. You followed me.
Well, you didn't listen to the flight attendant, dude. Come on. She tells you to turn it off, turn your phone off. All right. If there's nothing else, topic number 3, let's talk about the uber creepy Oswald Danes. So, apparently Russell T Davies, in his creative genius, thought, you know what this show needs? It needs a child molester.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what every show is missing.
Right. So apparently his idea was to start off the show with a child molester that's being put to death in Kentucky, this Oswald Danes, and unfortunately, the execution doesn't take.
Yeah.
And that's essentially our first, hint that something obviously isn't right. And so Oswald apparently, after suffering, presumably, at the result of this failed execution.
I feel so bad about that.
Right,
So
really
bad.
upset, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like, you can see the tears. The tears are just flowing right now, right? Really
If you
choked up
don't, it's
about
just
it.
because, you can't, the
Yeah.
camera must not be as good in here.
Apparently, right? So he gets visited by a representative from the governor. And he proceeds to tell the representative, hey, you know what? You're going to let me out because of these little things called the Fifth and the Eighth Amendments to the Constitution of the United States.
Mm.
And so essentially what happens is because those amendments, the fifth one is the double jeopardy clause, where you can essentially be convicted twice for the same offense.
Just go watch the Ashley Judd movie, Double Jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly. And the eighth is essentially the one that prohibits the government from excessive punishment.
Mm. Yeah.
So presumably, we tried to kill him once, so we can't kill him again.
Yeah.
So he says, well, if you don't let me out, I'm going to sue, not the state. I'm going to sue the governor for millions and millions of dollars. The man himself. So essentially this forces the governor to go, crap, I don't know how this is going to play out. So essentially they release him under what's something called force majeure, which is essentially, for lack of a better term, act of God.
Yeah, I'd say that qualifies, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the simplest explanation. So that, something, completely unexpected happened. And so there are extenuating circumstances. And so he gets released, and the public is none too happy about it. So what did you make of the idea, since you've obviously watched the rest of the series, and you kind of know what happens with Oswald? What did you make of that decision by Russell T Davies to introduce this kind of a in Torchwood?
Well,
it's pretty controversial.
He's one of those things that in a nice trim season would not have been a big part. You wouldn't have gotten Bill Pullman to play the part because it would have been just a little detail possibly coming up in the background on the news reports. Oswald, he plays some convenient roles at the beginning. He's convenient to make the start of the miracle visible. He's the first non-deaf the public saw, because obviously his execution was very publicized, and when it failed, everybody saw it, and that was like the big opening act of Miracle Day.
Big news, yeah.
And then he became part of the Miracle Day questions. Things like it's like you're sitting around in a writer's room, and you pose the question: what if nobody could die? What if all of humans on the planet stopped dying? What would happen? And all sorts of things would come out of that discussion. And Oswald is one of them. What if you can't have the death sentence anymore? What if someone should be put to death and can't be put to death? What do you do then? What would happen? And he's that question. He's, and in addition to that, it's like someone
decided. It's not
decided,
just going to be the good people that continue to live. It's going to be the bad people too.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that gets brought up by the situation. There's lots of things that get brought up by a situation like this, and he is one of them. But also, he feels like someone decided Miracle Day wasn't a villain enough for this story to be told. They needed a villain with a face, and they needed to be truly villain-like. Right. But as he continues to stick around, I feel like he serves very little purpose. In the end, he just...
Well, I think what happened was that Oswald, like you said, I agree with you totally that he was essentially supposed to be the face of the bad things going on behind the scenes. Because what happens is Oswald, he kind of gets recruited by, the families, the guys, the people behind the scenes, and the dark forces manipulating everything.
Actually, I don't think the family didn't recruit him. Gilly Anderson, who's not in this episode at all, she jumps on him as a story to promote, because she's a PR person and he is good PR right now, and because of her work with him, the family recruits her.
Okay. All right.
But
I couldn't remember.
The families,
I haven't watched the whole
had
thing.
Nothing to do with him. Absolutely nothing to do with him. Which is
so they're indirectly connected. So essentially, it's like there's a trail. So, so Oswald is connected to was it Gilly? I can't remember.
Yeah, Gilly.
Yeah, Gilly, and then Gilly is connected to the families. So this is how the path leads back. So once the story eventually, unfortunately not fast enough, shifts to the families, Oswald is essentially rendered irrelevant. He's just a loose story thread.
But he keeps existing, and he keeps persisting in the story. You can't.
Right, he just won't go away.
All the effort they put into him up to that point, it's not something he can't just disappear, because then everybody would be like, and then whatever happened to Oswald Danes? So he's just annoyingly still there. And I think his entire storyline was a symbol of American filler. We need more. We need to put more into this. More. We need more characters. We need an actual villain, not just Miracle Day, which is a kind of a gray area. We need a solid villain, because why?
And they build him up to be this big global celebrity.
Yeah.
He's speaking to a bunch of people in arenas and whatnot. So he becomes this big, supposedly big important thing, but his storyline really doesn't go anywhere.
Exactly.
It's just like this big road to nowhere, and it's you just kind of wondered I kind of wonder how much better this show would have been without this character entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like if we didn't need, we needed, at least back then, I don't think standard Americans were ready for it yet. But the villain did the whole conflict of a story. It doesn't have to be black and white. What makes Torchwood, what makes Doctor Who a great storytelling thing is that a lot of times the conflict that comes up is a gray area. You're not sure how to deal with it because you're not sure if you should get rid of it. You're not sure if destroying it is the solution. And that's what makes a good storytelling. I think Miracle Day itself, this complication of everybody continuing to live, was enough to tide us over if they didn't feel the need to stretch it out into 10 episodes.
Yeah. Or just, more, it probably would have been better had they focused on the things that really mattered more.
Absolutely.
And kind of contained it. But it seemed like Russell T Davies, after Children of Earth, probably he just seemed to love this huge scope, and probably thought, after Children of Earth, I certainly get this vibe from him that he's a big concept guy, and he loves the idea of okay, well, here's this big concept. How does it affect the, little things, little unexpected things? Maybe things that we don't want to even explore. So I find that fascinating. So let's explore it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, who would care about okay, watching this show about that people aren't dying? Who's really going to care what happens to a serial or a child molester character? So, but Russell T Davies apparently thought that was interesting to him. It just wasn't really interesting to the rest of us.
It's mildly interesting. I mean, because that's just like the tip of the top worst possible villain you could really think of, worst criminal you could think of who'd be being put to death. Yeah. And I think it would have been worth bringing up during the show, but I don't think it should have been put at the forefront.
No, it could have been like an episode tops.
Yeah.
And that would have been okay.
Or just one of those news stories that kept coming up in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for continuity's sake. Hey, here's this guy we're mentioning, but he doesn't really have anything really to do with this main story.
Right. Although, nothing against Bill Pullman. He did an excellent job in this role.
No.
I hated him.
It's a really difficult role. And,
yeah.
Having seen, Pullman the way because he kind of played that very uncomfortable character that you're not sure what to make of when he did Lost Highway. So I kind of knew, he was certainly capable of this. And, he, to his credit, unlike maybe a certain David Boreanaz, he does have a little bit more range. And he's able to pull something like this off. So I felt very comfortable with that. And he definitely makes Oswald Danes unlikable. You hate this guy. You just want him to get crushed under a steamroller as fast as possible. So he does his job. Pullman really breathes life into the character. The problem is though the character isn't something that really serves this overall story.
Yeah.
It's just more of it was oh, hey, it's a fun idea. And it probably should have been left at that.
Yeah, I think we definitely agree on that. I think if they had cut the fat from this whole storyline, and made Miracle Day the focus and discovering there really is a villain behind the whole piece, and that was the families. Yes. And made discovery of who was responsible for this, the true story, the mystery, the villain, and finding them. I think this would have been a much tighter season.
Yeah. I think the scope just got away from Russell T Davies and their other writers, and it needed a tighter focus. I agree. Yep. So what did you make of the Miracle Day idea, the story idea?
That I loved. I absolutely loved it. There's so many things that, people, they think sounds like a good idea, but they don't really look deeper into it. I mean, it sounds like, what if nobody had to die? Oh, that sounds great. No, that's awful, actually.
Yes. And this show proceeds to tell you why that's horrible.
Yeah. And all the things that would have to change because of it. And it's also if you were making a wish to a genie and the genie taking you quite literally and not really interpreting it, like, I wish nobody would die. Okay, well, everybody will still get hurt, still age. It'll still be, it'll be pretty gruesome, but here you go.
Yeah. It's almost like a monkey's paw kind of
exactly
trap. Yeah. Like, be careful what you wish for. You may get it.
Yeah. And it makes me, at first you think, like, you go further into the season and you find out that the families orchestrated this. You think maybe they thought this was a good idea and didn't think it through, but they did, because they had contingencies in place for everything. They had produced painkillers. They had already built the camps with the ovens and already knew the system they were going to put in place. So they knew what would come of making it so nobody could die. They already knew it. And I'm like, why? Why did you think that was a good idea?
Yeah, it's like this supremely overcomplicated plan, and which ultimately boils down to, like, hey, let's get revenge on Captain Jack Harkness.
Yeah, it seems a little excessive.
It does seem a little excessive. Like, you go through all this trouble and all this time, and just to get something of a much simpler goal, and it just, I don't know. It just.
I think maybe it came down to control, because when you control death, when you can decide how and when someone dies, then you really hold the power. Like, eventually people are going to want to die. They're going to want their life to be over, because you're not going to stop aging. No. So you're just going to keep going, and
you're going to keep decaying.
You keep decaying, and nobody's going to want to live like that. Oh, the money they could make, the things they could put into, the bargains that could be made with that kind of control.
Yeah.
And
then
you don't need a freaking pedophile. That's already evil.
Exactly, right? It's throwing in a child molester is just overkill at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's but yeah, it just seems like a very overcomplicated scheme that the families are doing here, and that's saying a lot, considering how many times we talk the Daleks on this show. Mm-hmm. So overcomplicating the plan, but or the Master, for example. So
let's move on.
All right. So anything else about the Miracle Day or Oswald you want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered it.
All right. Topic number 4. Let's talk Rex Matheson and Esther Drummond. So, and we can also throw in Dr. Vera Juarez as well. But we're introduced to Rex as someone who is extremely exhausting. At least that's my impression, because
that's
the
so
guy,
polite, Charles. So polite.
He never shuts up. He's extremely intense, and he loves barking orders at his underlings.
Let me read what I have written down. He's the most American part of this season. He's loud, belligerent, demanding, and acts like the rules don't apply to him.
Yes. Yeah, you can definitely tell. I mean,
basically any customer at a retail store.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that this is a British overseen production, because the Americans don't really fare well in this story. They're pretty much annoying.
Well, at least not him. I think he was meant as a replacement for Owen, because he's very self-centered.
I agree. And he's we find out that early on that he gets impaled, because essentially what he's doing is he's driving in the rain, and he's on his cell phone. And which is already right there a bad idea. And he can't really see where he's going. It's at night, of course. And in front of him is this truck that just happens to have long metal rods in the back.
Wasn't this a scene in Final Destination?
Yeah, exactly. It's what it is. That's basically what it is. It's like something right out of Final Destination. That's a great observation. So, of course, what happens is an accident happens, and one of the rods goes right into Rex's
His heart.
chest.
Yeah.
Right through it.
Now, this I feel like was karma.
It's like hard on a stick.
Trying to hit him right away, because not only was he doing all that, the conversation
Yes.
he was having was about taking joy out of somebody else's wife having leukemia so that he could get the cushy job that he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that was like instant karma.
Right.
And I could say, too bad the deaths weren't happening anymore, but then I think he suffered more because he didn't die from it.
Well, and I agree, that is a very karma thing, because he totally deserved it. And we all know that he did. He totally had it coming. But because of Miracle Day, that doesn't stop him.
Oh,
Even
God.
when,
He
he's
didn't
in
even
the
learn
hospital.
his lesson.
No, he learned nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Because he gets in the hospital, and immediately from the get-go, as soon as he wakes up, he's a big pain in the ass.
Absolutely.
He is, demanding, like, what's going on? I got to get out of here. He's like, he realizes that, well, no matter what happens, I'm not going to die, so I could just do what I want. And so he, even injured, doesn't really process that, well, hey, you're not healing, dude. You're injured. You were fatally injured.
Actually,
And
they never become clear on this. Like, if somebody gets injured, do they heal normally? If they get killed, injured enough that it would have killed them, will they heal from it, or do they stop healing after they would have been killed? They don't get into that.
Well, because Rex just keeps bleeding out.
Well, yeah, but also someone in his condition, even if they hadn't died from it, would have been hospitalized for at least a month after that, and he's running around all over half the world.
Well, all he did, we see him like grab a bottle of painkillers, presumably.
Yes,
and he starts slamming those down. Yeah, he's popping those like Tic Tacs.
Rex is not a good metric for whether or not someone would start to heal after an injury like that, because, it's just like you keep picking at a scab, it's not going to heal. He's constantly moving around. He wouldn't have healed regardless. So I don't know. They never really cover that. He asks that question, but it's too early in the miracle when he asks it for him to know. And even when we time jump ahead, they never talk about whether or not people heal from death injuries. They don't do it.
And so Rex is trying to find out, because there was this Torchwood virus thing that pops up on the CIA's
it was like a
computer screen. All it just says Torchwood. That's it.
Yeah, it just says Torchwood. And then
so everybody's like, what's this?
At first he's uninterested, thinks it has nothing to do with anything. But Esther, I like Esther.
Yeah. So let's talk about Esther for a little bit.
Yeah. She is a CIA analyst, and that means that she is persistent and she's curious and she knows lots of little things, because that is her job. She is the person that the agent in the field calls for information, and she seems to know it all. She is just constantly explaining things to him, and he's all barge in and demand things. And they must be paired up together a lot, because they have this kind of rapport. Like, he calls her from the hospital and starts piling, questions at her. And she's like, are you on your cell phone? Because you're not supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh, I get the feeling there is definitely history there between the two. So, because he seems very confident, relying on her, knows apparently what she's capable of.
And I gotta say, when she goes, I don't even remember. I don't think he sent her there. I think this was her own recognizance. She went to the files.
Yeah.
The hard copy
the
file.
The archive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To find any associated files of Torch, because all the Torchwood files had already been removed, but she knows that there's probably hard copies in associated files that are going to have information about Torchwood, and she's given absolutely nothing to go on. Absolutely nothing. She asked.
Well, very little. There is very little, because she knows that Torchwood was somehow connected to the 456.
It feels like
records.
She didn't even start there. Like, she found one file that mentioned the 456, and she was like, 456, yes, and went to look for that. But I'm like, where did you start? What was the file you were looking at? And,
who knows?
And it's like, are these even in any sort of order? Because it just looks like boxes piled everywhere, which just sounds like every filing system
the
I've ever
the
seen.
vibe I got there was like a little passage of time, that she had been there a little bit, but we don't know how long.
Yeah, I was gonna call foul.
She just looked like she was randomly searching boxes. Like, nope, not here.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I was gonna say, no, this isn't realistic because she's still wearing her coat. But then I realized, wait a minute, she's wearing that skimpy office outfit, and it's probably freezing in there because who heats files? So,
right, it's a warehouse. Essentially, it's a warehouse. Yeah, storage.
Yeah,
facility.
so she's wearing this trench coat the entire time, rain jacket, the whole time she's in there. And
well, it also makes her look more like a spy, right? Because she's in a trench coat.
Yeah, it's very film noir.
Yeah,
and mysterious figures comes out of the dark. You know,
she's in a trench coat. Jack's in his coat. So yeah, it did give that kind of vibe, like a spy thriller, perhaps, or like an old detective movie, perhaps.
And she gets hit with another callback to old Torchwood. He gives her the retcon.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody's favorite dating, drug, retcon.
Right. How do you get him to stop calling you after that first bad date? Just slip him a little retcon.
And problem solved. It's like magic. So, yeah, having apparently not had enough retcon problems before, Jack does, after they end up taking a tumble in the fountain, after escaping the suicide bomber. Yeah, exactly, right? Although I was kind of let down because, it wasn't like he doesn't come out. He's not all flamboyant Jack in this one. He's all enigmatic Jack.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He's trying, at least for a little while.
Right, because he's not all like, hey, everybody, did you miss me? No, he's not like that Jack. He's not the fun Jack.
He gets like that when he gets back around Gwen.
He's the broody angel wannabe Jack.
Oh, so, this is just going to keep coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So, but yeah, so they end up in the fountain, and then he actually tells her a little bit about Torchwood, and then says, oh, by the way, that bottle of water you just drank, well, it's got retcon in it. And,
Jack, you got some bad habits you need to drop.
Pretty much. And that's.
I do love Esther. I like her character. I like the type of person that she is. Always looking into things, always wanting to know more, digging further into it. But she gets used as sort of a vehicle.
She's an expository device.
Oh yeah,
what she is.
But like
she's there to provide all that plot information.
More so, I'm okay with that because that's literally her job. But she becomes the American to English translator. Like it starts like you only get a little bit of just a little touch of this in this episode when she tells Rex what that bridge is, where that bridge is taking him. But like the moment her and Gwen are together, it's just constant translating of this is this and this is this, and I'm like, oh my god, I know that more American audiences are going to be watching this, but come on guys, just crack a book, watch some British TV, don't shove it down my throat.
Yeah, that's a great point, because they do seem like they realize that, okay, yeah, like not everybody's going to be up on British culture or UK culture, I should say, but it did seem a little heavy-handed, to say the least, because, sometimes you don't need to explain everything. Let the audience actually learn on their own, like I did.
I mean,
and watching Doctor Who at the age of 15 and trying to pick up on British colloquialisms.
Exactly. I mean, I don't think a single person, American or British, is going to have a problem understanding mobile or cell phone. I don't think that needs translating.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah. The one thing I will give them is that most Americans don't realize that pants means something different over there.
Yes. Yeah. A little bit.
That's the one I will allow.
Yeah. You'd argue that you made a great point that essentially Rex is the Owen replacement, right?
Yes.
So I would argue
Tosh.
that Esther is the Tosh replacement. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Russell T Davies kind of fill in those blanks because hey, he just went ahead and killed those characters and didn't realize he might need some more, later on. Yeah.
Well, British TV, we like to replace characters every couple of seasons. It's just a shame that they replaced my show with they just kicked it off. I was gonna refill the cast. I swear I was.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, I was gonna do it. I was gonna get around to it. Yeah. You probably. All right.
Then we have
Regardless of all
Dr.
those
Vera.
big finish audios.
Oh
What?
yeah. Then we have Dr. Vera.
Yeah, we talked to Vera. Yeah.
She doesn't have a big role yet in this episode. It's just an introduction. She
does
also
become a player though.
but she also gives us a lot of exposition about what's happening at the beginning of Miracle Day. The confirmation. I was on the phone with this hospital and they said the same thing, and so I called another hospital and even one over in England and saw it happening everywhere. And
she's the backstory for Miracle Day.
One person said to me that she seems awfully chatty about this. I'm like, well, two things. First off, she's talking to someone from the CIA. She probably knows that at this point. And secondly, something like this, everybody's talking to everybody. Like, this is not something that you just keep under wraps or, don't talk about. Like, it's not like you're giving up certain person's medical files. This is a worldwide event.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of knew, it was kind of like essentially when the coronavirus first hit last year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, it was all everybody was talking about. And the same thing here with Miracle Day.
Absolutely.
It's going to be everything, the only thing everybody's talking about.
I think the only difference here is that it took them a long time to recognize Miracle Day as a pandemic. Because that's what it is. It really is. It had to be treated as such. And I think right at the beginning, Vera, with that, my dog is trying to make a bed out of my bed. It's amazing.
Yes. For anybody wondering what that sound was, yes. So, because Christine's home is quite the kennel at the moment.
Yes, I have two dogs in the room. One is snoring and the other one is digging.
So special guest appearance by Christine's dogs, everybody.
Yep. So you see her reaction with that explosion victim.
Yes.
Causer victim.
Yes.
And how immediately she's trying to protect this is our patient. They're conscious. They're aware that it is our duty. That she is the doctor in the room amongst probably quite a few doctors. The only one saying, we have a duty of care. We're supposed to take care of this person, not experiment on them. But, she is the silenced voice. It's like, yeah, you're be moving on.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. She's very quickly dismissed.
But she continues to be that person throughout the show. She's the one who speaks up for the people, reminding them that these are people, not just numbers.
Well, and she's also as the medical professional. She essentially serves the role of making some deductive analysis that kind of drives things eventually forward.
Mm-hmm.
Once we do get quite, like I said, we get in this big quagmire during the camp parts, but that's where essentially Vera steps to the forefront.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because being the medical professional character. All right. Only other thing I want to talk about Rex was at the end because, essentially after Jack and Gwen and Reese, they kind of try to go back to the hub where the hub was, and they try to come up with a plan about what they're going to do. Rex is there, and turns out Rex has kind of made some calls because Rex has apparently arranged things, probably with Esther's help, he doesn't quite arrest Torchwood. What he does is what's referred to as a rendition. which if you're not familiar with the term, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't, essentially it's where you take someone to a different country. Not like an extradition, but more like, hey, let's take someone we need to interrogate this guy. Let's take them to a country that's, doesn't have strict rules about interrogation and do it there. So it's a little more insidious.
Yeah, that sounds worse than being arrested. Like you can
pretty much. Yeah.
You can interrogate them after being
Right.
arrested, but I guess if you just simply arrested them, you would have to have them in a certain place rather than I'm just dragging you wherever the hell I feel like it.
Yeah, I have no idea what the
sounds
rules
like a
are regarding
CIA
this.
thing.
Yeah, I'm sure this is an intelligence agency thing.
Yeah,
presumably.
yeah.
So that's what happens is he even says, like, on behalf of the CIA under the 4, 5, 6 amendments, yada yada, I'm taking you, taking Torchwood to America. So essentially, you're drafted.
Wow, it really makes you question like how question your rights. How quickly your rights can be taken away in certain situations.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that's, happened, especially, during our long-standing war on terror. I'm sure that happened quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's just kind of unsettling to think about, I know.
Yeah.
But hey, thank Russell T. Davies because he's trotting out those big issues. And
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for making us think about these other things that I never thought about before, and now I won't sleep ever again. Appreciate it.
And that is the duty of sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And that's the best sci-fi is the sci-fi that makes you think. I totally agree.
Absolutely.
So it's got to be challenging. If it's not challenging, it's not worth your time, as far as I'm concerned. All right. Anything else about this episode that we missed? We talked a lot about it. So.
I think we covered.
Right.
I think we
everything.
covered the whole season.
All right. Well, pretty much. We tried because we're only talking about the first episode. So, all right. Favorite quotes? You have any favorite quotes you want to share?
I have a few.
Okay. Go for it.
Most of them are Rex.
Yeah, he does get the best lines.
Yeah, he gets the best line.
Maybe
Rex
with Jack, perhaps, but
Rex and Esther here, actually. What the hell is this bridge? The Severn Bridge. It connects England to Wales. What? You mean Wales is separate? It's like the British equivalent of New Jersey.
I love that line.
I like that. It's true, though. It's so true. And then, like, right after that, now what is this? Wait a minute. I got to pay for this bridge? Goddamn Wales.
Yeah. I love that he focuses on he's really pissed off that he had to pay for this toll bridge.
Oh, well, I got that quote too. It's just like,
yeah.
Like the fact that that part was included in this quote is the funniest thing. It's like, wait, I had a pull through my chest. I was dead, then I wasn't. I had to pay for this bridge, and now I want to know what the hell is going on, all right?
Yeah. He's all like, this bridge, he says it with such disdain in his voice.
He is so focused on that bridge.
Right. He fixates on it, totally. I agree. Let's see, what else? I liked Jack with Esther talking about the Torchwood Institute, where he says, the Torchwood Institute was set up by the British royal family in 1879 to defend the realm of Great Britain by investigating the unusual, the strange, and the alien. And Esther replies, I'm kind of guessing alien doesn't mean foreign. And Jack confirms this, saying alien, as an extraterrestrial. So, yeah. It's like, it's kind of a duh thing, Esther, but...
Let's just be clear.
Yep. Mary, Gwen's mom Mary, with Gwen, where Mary's looking at Unwin going, look at her, though. She's huge. Gwen replies, she's perfectly normal, Mum. And Mary replies, don't you be a fool, girl. What are you feeding her, lard? And Gwen replies, yes, Mum, I'm feeding her lard.
It's perfectly healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good for the arteries, right? And then I like the line with Jack, where looking over that spread out corpse of the suicide bomber, where Jack goes, Excuse me, I was wondering, and then when he pulls out his badge and goes, Owen Harper, FBI. But what if you detach the head? I mean, would he stay alive without his head? And this guy, Professor Santini, replies, I suggest we find out. Rather ominously.
Mm.
So I like that. I thought that was good. All right. So what's your rating for this one?
It's a good opening episode. Was not struggling with pacing issues during this episode. Right. That comes later. But of course, just opening episodes, they're all about setup, getting us set up into stuff. So it's all anticipatory.
Yes.
Although nice explosions at the end. Always good.
Explosions are always good. Yep.
Yeah. So I give it 8 out of 10 cell phones in inappropriate places.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot. So I'm right there with you. I thought that, it's an introductory episode because, hey, they're trying to, set up Torchwood for a brand new audience of Americans that presumably haven't already watched Torchwood. So they're there's a lot of unnecessary exposition, as far as Torchwood fans are concerned, at least. And, we get introduced to a lot of new characters, new situations. Things are getting set up. We get this big idea introduced, this big concept of what if people never died? And what would happen to the world if that did happen? So I like the big concept thing. So I'm giving it 8 out of 10. I'm going to go with metal rods impaled in Rex's chest.
Ow.
That might leave a mark. Just a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Just put a Band-Aid on it. It'll be fine. Walk it off. All right. So a pretty, solid introduction to Torchwood, Miracle Day, but it does take a little bit of a rocky road from here.
Yeah. Ups and downs.
Yeah. It's not exactly the show's strongest season. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Sadly.
Sadly. But this first episode, and I'm glad we talked about it because I thought there was a lot of nice things to talk about.
An excellent concept in this season, though.
Yeah, it was. Reverse the polarity. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I know we're running long. But if you're watching Torchwood Miracle Day, especially this first episode, The New World, and you're looking for something a little similar, I was trying to come up with okay, what would be similar to that? And I thought, well, maybe not so much the subject matter, but the tone. So what I'm going with is, if you watch The New World, you're looking for a Doctor Who thing, perhaps, that's something similar. How about Doctor Who, the movie? The 1996 TV movie starring Paul McGann, which, hey, was a British co-production with the United States. Like Fox Network, where Torchwood was originally pitched, and it was written by Matthew Jacobs, and essentially what this was the attempt after Doctor Who being off the air for 9 years, 7 years after 1989 when the last Sylvester McCoy season aired, that they tried to bring the first attempt to bring Doctor Who back on the air, the first attempt at a revival. And they introduced Paul McGann as Sylvester McCoy's replacement. We get Sylvester McCoy, and we get to see him regenerate, so we get a regeneration for his Doctor, which is nice. And we got the Paul McGann's the Eighth Doctor, which he's been fabulous. Maybe this wasn't Paul McGann's strongest story as the Eighth Doctor, but he obviously, when he comes back 5 years after this for Big Finish Audios, that's when he really gets to develop his Doctor and earned a lot of fans as a result. So yeah, something similar. So here we have, just like with Torchwood Miracle Day, it's, the Americanization almost of a beloved British sci-fi icon.
I don't know. It doesn't sound like it would take as much of your time to watch it.
No, it's only, an hour and a half without commercials. Yeah. So it's a little quicker than Miracle Day. Let's just put it that way. A little better paced, let's put it that way too. So
yeah.
That's my recommendation anyway. So check it out. All right. So listener feedback. We have our usual wonderful listeners, David K. Proctor and Holly Mack, writing in once again about the New World. So Dave Proctor writes in, hello again in the TARDIS. Well, hello, Dave. I mean this more sincerely than ever. I hope everyone is well.
Jesse.
Well, looking at you, Jesse Jackson. So,
We miss you.
We miss you, Jesse. We want you to get back. We want you to get well and rejoin us, to talk more Doctor Who and Torchwood.
I am running out of sunshine and rainbows. I need my Jesse back.
Yeah, exactly. It's been, a very concerning month for me because, my co-host Zan on Drunk Cinema and Ghost with Twin Peaks podcast, she's had some health problems. My wife Lori and I, we had our COVID shots, and so we're recovering. So, we got through those, but very concerned about that. My mom's had some health problems, so I need everybody to be healthy for a while, a good long while, personally.
I will try.
But, that's please do. So getting back to Dave before I need more therapy. Good season opener that illustrates one of those things that we want most, immortality. Clearly we don't. Not universally anyway. I enjoyed seeing Mekhi Phifer again. It's been since ER when he acted alongside one of my favorite Whoniverse personalities, Alex Kingston. He also made a wonderful zombie movie, Dawn of the Dead. Perhaps a no one can die theme here. It is rare for anyone to point out the bad side of living forever. Of course, Jack Harkness is having the opposite problem, mortality in the form of a cut on his arm. This leads to chaos, and of course a pedophile murderer on death row is set loose. The scenes of the upcoming stories is telling enough to lock me in. The only thing that gives me pause is the way the last season ended. I hated it immensely. Probably because Jack killed his grandson. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that the whole thing. Yeah, we kind of talked about that. It was, it wasn't very pleasant. Now the crew, what is left of them to have rounded up from hiding even from their own family. Now we have the band back together. Let's dance. So put on those red shoes and dance. As David Bowie, the late great David Bowie said. I give this 10 out of 10 hand-delivered handguns by the British government to turn around from where we were excited for a new season in one show. After a week of the podcast crew being sick, a season of immortality feels hopeful. I have good feelings about the awesome next guest on the podcast. Well, it's very sly of you, Dave, knowing who that next guest is. But thank you, he says, David K. Proctor. So thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. I stick with be careful what you wish for on that immortality thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, unless you look like John Barrowman, I guess, but, pull it off.
Definitely.
That helps, right?
Yeah, for better phrasing of that wish for agelessness. Agelessness.
That's a key word there. In that. That's one of those clauses you need to have put in that particular contract, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So also writing in is Holly Mack, who, hey, we just talked to her last week, guys. So Holly writes in, already helping us out here because sadly she couldn't join us as she was hoping to. But she goes, hey, Charles and Christine. I have to say the first episode of Miracle Day started out with a promising start. Agreed. For it being a BBC Stars production, it was decent, trying to not be down on it too much, but not my favorite out of all the series as a whole. Bill Pullman plays a great bad guy in Oswald Danes. Mekhi Phifer as Rex Matheson was good casting, but his character reminded me a bit of the character he played in ER, Greg Pratt. Love the scene with Gwen and Reese. The scenes with Gwen and Reese. Gwen telling Anwen a story about a case from the very first season of Torchwood.
Oh.
I don't remember. Apparently, maybe it was.
I don't know.
Holly is our Torchwood expert. So,
Holly, you're going to have to be more specific for us.
Which episode, Holly? Tell us. Driving us crazy here. So, but first season at least narrows it down. And let's see. Yeah, Gwen telling Unwin the story and Reese scolding her and saying they were going to keep Unwin away from the Torchwood stuff. Then, not seconds later, they're both drawing guns at the ready for the couple who comes to ask a question. Although it turns out they were probably just scouting what was going on inside, presumably. Probably. They're shady old people, is what they were.
All old people are shady.
Not all of them. I wouldn't say my parents are shady, but most of them. Let's put it that way. All right, so Jack meeting Esther for the first time was explosive, to say the least, pardon the pun. Jack telling her everything and then retconning her just like he did with Gwen way back when. Yeah, I guess that was a callback, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to recruit you into Torchwood, or...
Hey, it's supposed to be a reboot, right?
Yeah, you're looking into Torchwood, but, we don't want you just yet, so we're going to retcon you. But eventually you'll become part of Torchwood. Man, the guy who survived the explosion, ew. Loved the nod to Owen with Jack impersonating him as an FBI agent. Rex is very determined about getting the information on Torchwood. Slightly. Loved Rex's line about Wales and being the British equivalent of New Jersey. And Jack comes to save the day. We get the reveal that Jack's not immortal anymore. I'll wrap it up here. Dun, dun, dun. Holly from Wisconsin. So thank you, Holly. Thank you, Dave, writing in. We love it when you guys write in, or in Holly's case, especially that when you're here talking to us, and we get to hear your lovely voice talking about Torchwood. So that's always fun. All right, so if you want to be like Holly and Dave, please do write to us at nextstopeverywhere@smg, nextstopeverywhere@smj, excuse me, it's been a long day, at gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywhere@smg for Southgate Media Group at gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at nextstopsmg on Twitter. Facebook, of course, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who Podcast, or Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. And Christine, where can they hear you and find out what you're up to? Or maybe, I don't know, just find out what's going on with your dogs behind you. I don't know.
I don't talk about my dogs in mixed company. No.
Okay. That's confidential information.
Yeah. Not really. I mean, who doesn't like sharing pictures of their dogs?
Right. It's the internet. Come on.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't go posting pictures of my dogs in places that people can find me. You can follow, like my Facebook page, Christine Peruski, and follow me on Twitter at C_Peruski. That is where you can follow my travels through podcast land, because I do not have a podcast of my own, but I love to visit everyone else's, like Next Stop Everywhere and Happiness and Darkness with DJ Nick, who has been monopolizing my time.
Right. So what are the episodes of Happiness and Darkness that you were on recently?
Most recently, was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Because we were
the Secret of the Ooze.
Yes, the Secret of the Ooze. We were just short of grabbing the first one from someone else who had the same idea at like the same time. But that episode, most recent one, is my boyfriend's first podcast debut, basically the internet's debut, because he doesn't even so much as comment on the internet. So deciding to do a podcast with me, that was an interesting first step for him. But he loves the Turtles, so he was really into that. But before that, really all the weird ones like Turtles. Well, actually, one not weird one. I did X-Men First Class.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, and then before that was Kick-Ass. I did Kick-Ass 2 also. Both of those I did with Holly. And did Scott Pilgrim and Tank Girl. So yeah, I've been a lot on that podcast. A lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to Nick and say, hey, gotta let Christine come over here more often. Come on. Throw us a bone here, provided you want to, of course.
I do. I don't know. I'm really slow to think about. There's so many that you've already done, and I don't know. There's
still plenty left. There's still lots of episodes we haven't talked about yet.
I know. We talked
Still a
last
lot of
time
Matt
about
Smith era, still a lot of David Tennant's era.
we talked last time about doing one of those commentary style ones.
We could do that too.
With Nardole, because Nardole is like my second favorite companion, and I am just now going through that season with my boyfriend, his first time, and trying to figure out which one I think would be best.
Let me know.
I think I may have found it. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, let me know, because we're going to be doing the schedule once again here very, very shortly. So now would be a good time to start thinking of episodes you want to talk about. Just going to put that out there.
I will
Stay
do my
tuned,
best.
everybody. And that goes to all of you out there in podcast land as well, of course. All right. As for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of the geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere. Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish Audios, and more. And, of course, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media, including, the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with a certain DJ Nick, where we just wrapped up The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Had a lot of fun talking those episodes.
Wait, is that the title? Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Well, it was, but, they kind of had to change things with the 6th episode.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we actually talked about in the episode we just recorded this past week. One World.
One Voice?
One Voice. No, it's like, I forget what
One
the
People.
title is. One People, thank you. That's it. There you go. See, Christine knows it better than I do.
Sure.
I told you it was a long day. So, and hey, it's me. So, I'm getting old. But after that, we're going to be discussing, we're going to take a week off, and then we're going to come back in 2 weeks to discuss the first 2 episodes of something that may slip under people's radar. So I want to mention it now. We're going to discuss Jupiter's Legacy, which is a new Netflix series based on an Image Comics series by Mark Millar and Frank Quitely about, essentially it's about a generational superhero family, and where essentially you had superheroes first arriving in the 1930s, and they apparently had very long lives, and then they had kids, and those kids aren't exactly reaching their potential. And I think it might appeal to a lot of people, especially if you like shows like The Boys, perhaps, or if you're watching the Invincible animated series on Amazon Prime. So it's on Netflix. It's called Jupiter's Legacy, and Nick and I are kind of like using that to fill the gap for a month before we start talking about Loki, the next Marvel Cinematic Universe show on Disney Plus, which is going to be a lot of fun.
For that.
I figured you wouldn't. Yes. You mean, are you saying you're a Tom Hiddleston fan, perhaps?
I plead the 5th.
All right. You and Oswald Danes, apparently. All right.
Oh, no, do not put me with him. No.
That's a little creepy. All right. Granted. I'll give you that. But I hope everybody checks out Jupiter's Legacy when we talk about it on Phantom Zone. And then Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast to do with Zan Sprouse, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch. We went off for a little while because Zan had some health problems, but hopefully she'll be feeling good next time we talk. And we're going to discuss the first episode of the 1993 HBO series Hotel Room, which I had never seen, and Zan hasn't seen since like 95 or so. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion. They only did 3 episodes of these, but David Lynch directed the first and third episodes. And it's got some interesting actors, Harry Dean Stanton for one, and he is in the first episode. So I hope everybody checks that one out. I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion. And then last but certainly not least, Drunk Cinema, that I also do with Zan, which is our side gig, and Christine is kind of like, yay, Drunk Cinema. We've also been off on that show as well because Zan, not to slight Zan,
That's
because
right.
she's had some legitimate. I'm not going to blame her because she's just had some legitimate health problems, so she gets a pass. And she also had some friends over recently.
Company.
So we're going to so we're going to try and record that this Friday finally, and we will be discussing the 2003 movie Kung Pao Enter the Fist, the martial arts comedy starring Steve Odenkirk. And it's a very funny movie. I know that Nick, after hearing about it, that we're going to discuss it, watched it for the first time and said he loved it. So I hope everybody else checks it out if you haven't already. It's a great martial arts movie, comedy, and I hope everybody checks it out because it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope Zan likes it because she has never seen this movie either. So we'll find out. And that's all I have. I know it's a lot. But next time on Next Stop Everywhere, episode 230, we're going to discuss Carnival Monsters as we get back to classic Doctor Who with a certain Dave Proctor returning after far too long of an absence to Next Stop Everywhere. So Dave's finally going to leave the confines of his emails where he's all safe and warm, and he's going to come back here to Next Stop Everywhere, and we're going to have some fun talking Doctor Who at long last. We've had a month off talking Doctor Who, and we're going to get back with a classic one from the John Pertwee era, and I hope everybody enjoys it. Christine, thank you so much. Yeah. I mean,
you're welcome.
Especially with Jesse out, I really appreciate you being here. I know your thoughts are with Jesse, as are mine. And we hope he's back soon. But at least, I was able to, in his absence, at least I got to talk to you. And I'm very happy about that because it's been far too long.
I was happy to talk to you, too.
And I would have you on far more often than you would probably like if I was allowed to. But
well, I have that uncomfortable schedule. It doesn't match everybody else's, so.
Yeah, I know. You've got certain work things you got to work around. So
right.
But I really appreciate you making time for us, and when you can, and I hope you come back soon because I really enjoyed talking with you, and I hope you did. I hope you had a good time.
Oh yeah, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to us.
Oh, I hope they did too. So thank you guys. Thanks for listening, everyone, and then coming back next time, episode 230. Like I said, Carnival Monsters, as we get back to classic Doctor Who with Dave Proctor, yours truly. It'd be nice if Jesse Jackson was here, but maybe if he's feeling up to it. And so everybody, please come back next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.